the Chi-Town experience on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the like.
The Chicago Bears are closing in on yet another massive hire under Ben Johnson's coaching staff. Plus, Ben Johnson has already been nudging the Chicago Bears and Ryan Poles at one of the top running backs in the NFL draft. Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. So, Bears fans, we have a couple of key updates and news in regard to the Chicago Bears. First and foremost, the Chicago Bears know that fixing the offensive line this season is critical to the team's success. Ryan Poles definitely feels the pressure. He has all the resources in the world, not only including the fourth most cap space in the National Football League going into the offseason, but also multiple top draft picks to really fix the offensive line for the Chicago Bears. But the key thing here was finding the perfect coach to coach the offensive line. You guys have heard me say countless number of times that the offensive line coach hire for Ben Johnson would probably be the most important after the defensive coordinator hire for Ben Johnson. And we had to find someone to replace Chris Morgan. New head coach Ben Johnson has spent the last 10 days looking into multiple options, including Joe Rudolph of Notre Dame and Justin Fry of Ohio State. However, it appears that the Chicago Bears are closing in and finalizing a deal with a massive upgrade, a guy that can come in and really make an immediate impact on the Chicago Bears offensive line. Obviously, you guys heard Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune report that Tulane offensive line coach Dan Roushar was the name to watch as the search unfolded. He interviewed with the team on Friday. Now, according to David Kaplan of ESPN 1000, the two sides are working to finalize a deal that would bring him to Chicago and be the Chicago Bears' new offensive line coach. And once again, we have had so many conversations about Roushar. He would be an immediate boost for the Chicago Bears. And here is one thing that no one can deny about the 64-year-old is that he has a massive amount of experience developing some of the top guys in the National Football League. For example, he uncovered Jack Conklin at Michigan State, who went on to become a Pro Bowler in the National Football League. And then Roushar, going back to some of his background, took over in New Orleans, really developing a whole bunch of studs for the next decade. Between 2013 and 2022, no fewer than 7 players would either make a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro under his watch. The Saints drafted names like Teron Armstead, Andres Pete, Ryan Ramczyk, Eric McCoy, and Cesar Ruiz over that stretch, and he had a hand in making those guys some of the best players in the National Football League at their respective positions. Honestly, when you look at that span from 2013 to 2022, the New Orleans Saints had some pretty good offensive lines and some pretty good rushing attacks during his span of being an offensive line coach. As we all know, he's currently the offensive line coach at Tulane, so this would be a big jump for him coming back to the National Football League. And you think about how big of a hire this is for Ben Johnson, who to me is knocking it out of the park with some key hires at some key positions. Starting off with Dennis Allen at defensive coordinator. You get a guy like Al Harris, Antoine Randall L. And now it seems like Dan Roushar is coming into the fold at, to me, one of the most important position groups for the Chicago Bears. A position group that has been struggling for years and years and years, and had a lot to do with not only the talent and the prospects that Ryan Poles was bringing in, but that had a lot to do with Chris Morgan as a coach, struggling to develop guys, key in on talent and bringing in talent. And that's something that Dan Roushar has no problem in doing. This is a huge hire for guys like Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones. Dan Roushar has shown in his past that he's able to develop guys like that. So I expect a huge jump from guys like Darnell Wright. I have huge expectations for Braxton Jones under Ben Johnson. And now a guy that can come in and really refine his skills. But I'm most excited for Darnell Wright and the jump that we can see from him under Dan Roushar's watch. Once again, this is an absolutely huge hire for Ben Johnson. If this actually gets done, it's leaning that way. I've been hearing that there's just a couple of other hurdles that he needs to get done, but hopefully this deal can get done by the end of next week. That's what I'm kind of hearing, maybe sooner. But once again, if the Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson, can get across this finish line, this would be an absolutely massive hire for Ben Johnson's coaching staff. Now going on to some other news for the Chicago Bears. It is rumored that Ben Johnson is nudging Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears towards one of the top running backs in the 2025 NFL Draft. Once again, it's no question that Ben Johnson was brought in to help develop Caleb Williams at quarterback, really take him to the next level. But when you really look at what Ben Johnson was able to do with Jared Goff with the Detroit Lions, one of the key reasons why the Detroit Lions were so successful was with one, their offensive line, and two, the running backs that they really had over there in Detroit. You're looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, you're looking at David Montgomery. They called them Sonic and Knuckles. One is a power back, one is a speed back. And when you look at the Chicago Bears' current situation, we have DeAndre Swift, which is more of a speedy, shifty back, but the Chicago Bears are still looking for their workhorse type of back. I know there's a lot of Bears fans that will say, hey, we still have Roschon Johnson, but I do know that Ben Johnson is looking to upgrade at the position to find a workhorse back that can do everything. Not only run the football, but have the acceleration, that long speed to, have dynamic plays, right? Or not only be a blocker, but also be helpful out of the backfield and be another weapon for Caleb Williams. So he's really looking for an all-around back. And it seems that he already has one of his favorite players in mind. Has already been nudging Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears to take a close look at. According to Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune, he has heard from some around the league who think Johnson will go hunting for running back help. This is what he had to say, Bears fans. If you view Swift as sort of what Gibbs is, a player with open field ability, what the Bears need is a new version of David Montgomery. They need a tone setter. Swift isn't as gifted as Gibbs athletically, but they're similar in some regards. There's no question Gibbs has more tools than Montgomery, but Montgomery was the player in the Lions offense who did what? He set the tone. That's not on the roster right now in Chicago, an assistant general manager for another team said. Roschon Johnson runs too high, and I like Roschon as a back. Just like I said, Bears fans, I think Roschon Johnson is a fan favorite, but Ben Johnson is obviously looking for more. And you've seen Roschon Johnson at times become that tone setter, but the prior coaching staff really just didn't use him unless it was short yardage situations or goal line situations. Maybe Ben Johnson could have bigger plans and utilize Roschon Johnson a little bit more, but every rumor, every report, and even Ben Johnson came out in his interviews and said very clearly that he was looking to upgrade the running back position. So that's really not a good look or good news for a guy like Roschon Johnson. But once again, this is a very good year to need running back help. I know a lot of people are looking at running back Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State, but there's a whole lot of other running backs that are still going to be available in round 2. And as we all know, the Chicago Bears have pick number 39 and 41. They can very well upgrade the running back position in round 2 as well. We don't really have to depend on getting Jeanty or bust. There's some other guys as well, but there's one player that Ben Johnson has been nudging the Chicago Bears, and that player is Caleb Johnson of Iowa. And I've heard a lot of Bears fans on social media down below in my comment section talk about Caleb Johnson, and Caleb Johnson is one of the best running backs in the 2025 NFL Draft. I really like what he would bring to the Chicago Bears offense, and it's really no surprise that Ben Johnson has interest in a guy like Caleb Johnson. He's 21 years old, was a breakout star in 2024 for Iowa, carrying the Hawkeyes offense with 1,537 rushing yards and 21 touchdowns. He showcased strong performances against Ohio State and Wisconsin, and those are really clear indicators that he can really translate to the next level. I think when you're looking at any player in the NFL draft, you're looking for those breakout games against, legit competition. Ohio State and Wisconsin were breakout performances for Caleb Johnson and really proved to scouts that this kid has what it takes to play at the next level. He's drawn some notable comparisons ranging between Arizona Cardinals star James Conner and former Houston Texans Pro Bowler Arian Foster. Both of those guys were workhorse backs, guys that, can block, guys that can run, guys that can receive out of the backfield, and make dynamic plays in the National Football League. So those are definitely really good comparisons for Caleb Johnson. Once again, Johnson's a well-built workhorse with vision, toughness, burst, and contact balance. His power dynamic would be great complement to Swift's speedy style. Once again, Ben Johnson had Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Obviously, once again, just like Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune said, you can't really compare DeAndre Swift to Jahmyr Gibbs. I think they're on two different levels. But now we need our David Montgomery. Roschon Johnson's good, but I think we need a little bit more. And Caleb Johnson would elevate this running back room. I think that would bring a really strong dynamic with Caleb Johnson and DeAndre Swift. Once again, they would have every opportunity to draft a guy like Caleb Johnson with those 2 second-round picks, pick number 39 and 41. I do expect the Chicago Bears to invest in the running back position some point in the NFL offseason. I don't think there's not really a lot of good running backs in free agency. But once again, it's loaded with talent in the 2025 NFL draft. And personally, with one of those second-round picks, as long as we can invest in the offensive line and defensive line in free agency, and maybe with that first-round pick number 10 in the 2025 NFL draft, I would think it would be a home run pick to get a guy like Caleb Johnson out of Iowa with one of those second round picks. So overall, Bears fans, I wanted to come on here really quick and just share those couple of updates with you. But before I let you guys go, let me ask you guys this. How do you guys feel about the report that the Bears are finalizing a deal with new Chicago Bears offensive line coach Dan Roushar? Let me know down below what you're thinking about that. And also, what do you feel about the rumors about Ben Johnson nudging Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears to possibly draft Caleb Johnson out of Iowa in the NFL draft to really bolster our running back room? I can't wait to hear from you guys. But other than that, Bears fans, make sure you guys continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you guys follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Geek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. But other than that, be back for an all new Bears podcast right here on Geek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't